How did you get to this point? Where are you?
At the age of 31, I just found myself just uncontrollable. My husband kind of just gave me an ultimatum. Can't do this anymore. You need help. My story is wild because I got my sober dates February 6th, 2020. So obviously, what was around the corner was COVID.
Do you think having that sensitivity is a burden or a gift?
A gift, 100%. I feel everything, and that's a lot of why I used alcohol to like numb a lot of those feelings.
Is there a time and a place for alcohol for any reason whatsoever?
You just haven't been to a fun party. I throw raves, like huge raves, where we don't drink. If I have breath in my lungs, I will be gathering people until I die.
If you're new here, welcome. I'm excited that you joined us. Every single week, I get to sit down with CEOs, leaders, founders, builders who are doing something really fantastic on the planet. They're building a business that's making a difference in other people's lives. And I get the opportunity to sit down and chat with them and learn how they're doing it, the lessons, the failures, the opportunities, and they're going to leave you and me every single week with some nugget, mini nuggets actually, that you can integrate, implement into your business to do the same thing. So I'm glad you're here. Sit back, let's get into it.
All right, welcome back to the Brand Lab, the show where we do not just talk about brands. We talk about brands, business, platforms, and success from the outside in and the inside out. And we're going to pull the thing apart in every episode. We look underneath the polished language that the founders bring to the table. I'm going to challenge them on what they say in every episode. We're going to take a look at their offer, their resume, their pitch deck. We're going to look at their Instagram bio maybe. But at the end of the day, I want to know what their business does. I want to know about their founder story, why they chose to create whatever it is that they've created, and what difference it's making in the marketplace for the users that consume it. So the lab is sort of the alchemy of business and personal and professional and the alignment between those two. And it's my job to have conversations with people who are doing some real things on the planet. And my guest today is one of those people. So Christina, welcome to the Brand Lab. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So why did you agree to come on the show? I'm just curious. I always like to know why people agreed to do the lab.
So, I love branding. I have a communications degree myself, and branding is at the heart of everything. I think telling a good story for your business is super important, especially even as a founder. I think a lot of businesses start with what they do, not why they do it. So I was intrigued to do that. And I also just love chopping it up about business and branding. So.
Great. All right. Well, let me formally introduce you, Christina Kimbrough. She's the founder of Free Life, and I'm reading from a script here, so I like to read the resume as the introduction. She is the CEO and founder of Free Life, which is a social enterprise based in Hampton Roads, Virginia, which is just outside Virginia Beach. Is that right?
That's correct.
She's trying to reimagine how people gather by creating elevated alcohol-free experiences and community through Hampton Roads' first fully non-alcoholic mobile bar, curated non-alcoholic beverage distribution, and direct-to-consumer events. Free Life creates spaces that prioritize connection, presence, and well-being. But her resume version doesn't do her real justice, because I've already had a couple of conversations with her, and so we're going to learn a little bit more about her, because she's not just building a beverage company or a social community. She's building a cultural permission slip and creating spaces for people who don't drink alcohol but still want to be involved, still want to get dressed up, they still want to have fun, they still like the idea of elegance and depth and celebration and belonging to something. And she is speaking to the person, her audience, who has quietly begun to wonder, is there something still out there where I don't have to get shit-faced, and will people still want me around if I'm not drinking with them? Which is an interesting conversation, because everywhere you go, I know alcohol is on the decline, but I think it's just on the decline with one generation of people. We're gonna find that out from Christina. My question is it really on the decline, or is it just being replaced by something else that is even just as pernicious, which I don't know. I've done some data and some research on it, and it seems like that there is an alternative market that has slowly been creeping in. And so I don't really know. I'm not sure. Alcohol has a long and pernicious history. What I find fascinating about alcohol, and Christina, welcome to the lab. You're 6 years sober. It's a pretty amazing, given the market and the lifestyle and just kind of everything that is constantly in your face about alcohol. And I started paying attention to this actually when I met our common friend Milan about a year and a half ago. I started paying attention to every time I watch television and how many times they sexualize or coolerize or there's somebody drinking alcohol in some way, shape, or form, whether they're in a bar or they're pouring themselves a bottle of brandy or whiskey from a sexy bottle. And, there's always like these scenes. I've never not seen it in any sort of television or movie. So it's crazy how it is sort of seeped into literally everything we do. But anyhow, you're 6 years sober. You openly share your journey through addiction, mental health struggles, and recovery as a way to break stigma and help people feel less alone. Your work includes sober storytelling. I like the storytelling line, which is a live event experience where people share personal stories of sobriety and transformation in an intimate interview style format. You also lead workshops like Storytelling That Sells and Staying in the Room. I think she's coming from my job, where she blends brand strategy, emotional presence, storytelling, and social connection. Christina, you've been at Brown, you've been a speaker at Brown, you've been at Tidewater Community College. She does She Talks, not TED Talks. And sort of you're all over the globe talking about all the things that you love to do. So, wow. One of the things I really found to be pretty intoxicating in my first conversation about you is this idea that we don't need substances. We don't need drugs to connect with people, and we're all enough just as we are. So finally, Christina, after that long introduction, welcome to the Brand Laboratory.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
All right. For everybody who's listening or watching the show right now, this is what I want you to sit with. Pay attention to what she has to say. Drop a comment below. Why are you here on the episode? Why are you listening to? Are you here because you're sober? Are you here because you want to be sober? Are you questioning your relationship with alcohol? I know I have on a regular basis. Are you here because you're lonely? Hopefully Christina can shed some light on all of your questions, and we would love to hear from you in the episode today. All right. So let me hear a little bit about your journey. How did you get to this point? Where are you?
Yeah. So 6 years sober. I am an active duty military spouse. So my husband's a rescue swimmer in the Navy. And I bring that up because that's really where my drinking took off. I started drinking. I met him in San Diego partying. And then we started dating. And, culturally, like you said, so everybody drinks. It's huge in culture. And then honestly, like, I don't know, double or triple that in the military culture, which is very heavy. And so I kept drinking. And I would say, my addiction didn't take off right away. It was just kind of gradual. But at the age of 31, I just found myself, it was just uncontrollable. I stayed out all night one night, as you do, like how that's even possible. And then my husband kind of just gave me an ultimatum. He wasn't going to leave me, but it was very much so like, can't do this anymore. You need help. And so that was in 2020. My story is wild because I got my sober dates February 6th, 2020. So obviously, what was around the corner was COVID. But I moved back to Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from, got sober there, entered treatment. I did outpatient for like 6 weeks. And then the next week, COVID hit, which was crazy. So getting sober during COVID was the best thing that could happen because I don't want to think what could have happened. I kept drinking.
I feel like alcoholism as a general data metric went up during COVID, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
A lot more people
like exponentially,
drinking.
if I recall, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of things that did happen. There's a lot of different data. I always find it funny. Everybody has a COVID story. Well, during COVID, I did this, or during COVID, I dropped this, or during COVID, I walked away from corporate, or during COVID, I became an alcoholic, whatever it is. Like COVID was like a catalyst for so many different stories that I've heard from people.
Yeah.
I don't know what my COVID story is. During COVID, I launched a new business, really just kind of doubled down. That's what I did during COVID. All right. So you got sober during COVID, which was the opposite of what other people did. I want to go back a little bit further. As a child, were your parents alcoholics?
No, they weren't. No one in my family drank. In fact, I'm from a pretty religious household, evangelical. So alcohol really wasn't like present in my life. That's why I say the military was, a big that part of why I drank. I mean, obviously, I just being a young person, and being in that culture. But no, I was not exposed to it. Even my college. I mean, we drank a little bit, but it was not. Crazy as that sounds, it was not part of my college experience much either.
I'm not sure if I'm following the military connection. It's just because you were lonely, or that's just sort of like the general atmosphere. Everybody drinks.
Yeah, all of it. So everyone in the military drinks. And then when you're meeting new people, you go out and drink. It was just all of it. And then that life is just stressful. My husband's gone like 10 months out of the year with little to no contact. You're moving a lot. You don't have access to your communities. I had to move from Cleveland, Ohio to Florida to now Virginia. So there's just that lifestyle is very stressful to say the least.
So I'm sorry, but that wasn't the first time you had alcohol. You said you had it in college, and did you drink in high school any?
I didn't. I didn't. Yeah, I was not at home. And then it just really took off when I became a military spouse around 25. I started drinking problematically.
Tell me, if I may, can we just kind of unpack that a little bit?
Hmm.
What did alcohol do for you? Did it just make you feel numb? Was this enabling you to be more social? Like, what was sort of like the predicating thing that alcohol caused in you? Because I know it's different from everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the time, I will say you're not that reflective. Like I'm reflected now, but back then I wasn't thinking about it. But yeah, all of it. Loneliness was a big one for me. As a spouse, you move, you don't know people. Um, I have ADHD. I wasn't diagnosed at the time, and so just racing thoughts, a lot of OCD, social anxiety. I don't have social anxiety to meet people, but I would obsess of like, did I say too much? Did I talk too much? Did they like me? All of those things were going on in the background. And then some childhood trauma too, just unhealed trauma. I say it worked for me for a time. As crazy as that sounds, that's why I always had so much compassion for people that struggle with addiction, because sometimes those are the only tools that we have. They're not good tools. I'm not saying they are, but at the time, that's what I knew to how to help myself. Obviously, I do better now because I know how and I've healed. But
You said everybody in the military drinks, but it sounds like your husband was not one of those everybody's because he asked you to stop drinking.
he was drinking as well. Yeah, we were both drinking.
Now, is he also sober with you?
He is. Yeah, we're both sober.
Oh, brilliant. So you both have been doing the journey. Did he take to it just as you did, or was he sort of a little bit later? He jumped on
Later.
board.
He was later.
Interesting.
He's like a year or two sober, but he didn't struggle. Like I was really, I was struggling. I mean, we all struggle with it, but I think his was on and off. And it finally got to the point where it's like, I'm doing this. And we were just talking about this. He's like, I don't want to bargain with myself. Like, I could have one good night, but then the next night I get real fucked up. Like it was just, and we're also like approaching 40. So I was like, we're not doing this. We don't have time for the hangover.
What has been the biggest difference for you being sober? I'm curious.
I mean, honestly, a lot of like where we'll get into this, but where my business comes in is freedom. Just freedom from the obsession of like, okay, I'm gonna drink. I used to be like, I'll just drink beer tonight, like no shots or no spirits or whatever. And then freedom to have time, energy. I just got my life back. And I remember thinking that, I was scared that my social life would end or be boring, and it just couldn't be farther from the truth.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of, I know we're going to jump into this, but in terms of any other recreational, I'm assuming like it's cold turkey, nothing, no drugs, no alcohol.
Yeah, I don't do anything. Yeah, I'm not anti it.
You're not substituting something else in.
No, I just don't like it. I've tried. I mean, I've tried lots of different stuff, and I just prefer how I feel.
Yeah.
With being completely sober.
I was reading a study actually a couple months ago on sort of what alcohol does to the body in terms of how long it takes to process out of the body, all the different organs that it touches as it goes through the body, sort of like the different. I mean, it's just basically a poison, right? And so it's crazy to me that we consume as much as we do, but I don't think people really stop and think about what it is they're actually consuming. They just sort of get caught up in the high of what the beverage does to them. And I'm one of those people, and I don't drink a lot, but I do like to have an occasional glass of wine, especially when I'm traveling. I love to find and try new wines. I love good whiskey, but I'm very well aware, and I'm making a conscious choice to continue doing it, just because I feel like it's not a problem for me, but I do understand sort of what it does to your body. So it's interesting to me. So I appreciate you coming on here and being able to tell your story. One of the things you said in your interview form or your pre-call form that we require of all guests is we don't need substances to connect, and we're all enough just as we are. And that sounds really simple on the surface, but I think a lot of people, and I'm sort of going somewhere with this, depression is an all-time high. People are being isolated. We are more withdrawn than we've ever been. We are less social than we've ever been. I'm back in the dating world, and just sort of like a side story, I haven't dated I've been with a partner for basically the last 8 to 10 years with somebody, and suddenly two different people, but I'm suddenly thrown back into this, and I'm like, the game has completely changed. And in every situation, the first impulse is to go to a bar and have a drink, which is kind of like the introduction into the dating scene. And I was like, well, hey, how about we just go for a walk in the woods? And people are like, well, I can't go for a walk in the woods. Like, you're a strange dude I've never met before. I'm like, when did we become as a species so like protective and so scared of everything?
Yeah.
That's a question to you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think something we're not talking about is the effect that COVID had on our social health. Like, obviously, we talk about economics and business and all the things, but we really don't talk about it. And I've said this, I've seen a shift socially. I think we lost social skills. So social skills are a skill, right? And so if we don't use them, they atrophy. And so meaning it's the good side of that is we can work on them and get better. But the bad side is I don't think we're aware that a lot of us got used to staying home, and even younger people, right? Like there was a whole period, whole generation of people that had like high school or college or middle school at home, right? During those developmental years when you're learning to socialize and work through conflict and all the things. I think COVID's a really big part of it. And obviously, social media, digital media plays a role in all of that. And then obviously the political landscape. I think when we have, leadership, unfortunately, that can be divisive on whatever side you're on, it plays a role. It's multi-layered. It's like an onion.
Yeah, it really is. In terms of the community that you're building, tell me a little bit about what it is you're actually building right now and kind of where you are. And I know you've got some decent numbers to support what you're doing. Just if you could just catch us up to speed on what you're actually doing behind the scenes right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Free Life. So in 2021, I'll back it up. The world opened up. I didn't drink that first year, and I thought I had it on lock. I had sobriety on lock. I'm like, this is easy because I was home and I didn't have to socialize. 2021 hit, and if you remember, everything starts opening up. So I remember like going to my first wedding or barbecue or whatever, and I was like, I don't know how to people without a substance. Like this is really hard. And so I was like, I lost my friends. Like I don't have a lot of friends because I had drinking buddies. And so there were no elevated, cool spaces that didn't center alcohol, that weren't recovery based. And so I started a meetup with another friend and it in like 2022 and on the meetup app, and it blew up to like 500 people after, 5, 6 months. And I was like, what the hell is this? And so we got an LLC. I always joke just to not get sued, right? Because we were doing like yoga events, cold plunge, walk, shit like that, charging. And then from there, the community just kept building. And honestly, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. A business came out of that, but it started in community and it's still rooted in community. I do community events all the time.
What's the business that came out of that?
Yeah. So we have a non-alcoholic mobile bar.
Mm.
And so I'm truly bootstrapped. I had a really awesome nonprofit come to me and say, hey, could you do a mobile bar for our gala, but non-alcoholic? And I was like, what? I'd never heard of that, right? But I'm like, sure. So I won one local pitch competition here for $500, did a big pride fest out here, made my first round of real, revenue, profit. And from there, that idea was born and that has taken off like wildfire. So, I mean, I mobile bartend, just so if you've seen a bar at a wedding is the perfect way to put it, like a mobile bar, an alcoholic one. I do the same thing with all non-alcoholic drinks.
I didn't even realize there was such a market that it was emerging. And you and I know somebody. We met somebody who runs Free Spirits, Milan, and he was on the show maybe about a year ago. And it was the first time I'd ever been exposed to it. And he sent me a box of his beverages, and I mean they were phenomenal. They tasted just like the regular alcoholic version of. And he's got tequila and whiskey, and there was a rum. I think there was something else. I forget, a scotch maybe. And I just remember thinking, I only really drink wine and whiskey. But I remember drinking them and was like, wow, there's literally no difference between it. And I've noticed a lot of people are now selling those types of beverages that have THC in them also, which I don't really understand because North Carolina is a marijuana free state, but yet they're selling THC beers. Can you explain a little bit of logic for me on that one?
Sure. So, I mean, to be honest, I don't partake in any of those. I'm not anti them. I think they can be good for honestly like harm reduction. You're not going to get as, and be as drunk or imbibe as much, but I don't use anything THC. So I can't even really speak to it much. I'm not anti it. I get that people want to use it, but we don't do anything mind-altering.
No, but I wasn't accusing you or saying you did. I just wondering if you understand how they're even allowed to sell it.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I should do some research on that because I know North Carolina is a THC-free state, but yet I see people drinking this everywhere I go. It's like THC in the beer or in the wine or in the spirit. It's like mixed in somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not sure.
You wrote in your form that if somebody Googled you, they would miss that you are more sensitive than you appear. What does that sensitivity look like in real life? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think when I'm a public speaker and I host a lot of events, I think people often don't realize like that who you are as a person. I think they see the bubbly, shiny, happy side, but There's also when you start to lead, people have opinions and criticize things, and it doesn't come without its own drama. So I think that side of things just I appear to be happier than I probably am sometimes because I'm still balancing like being authentic and real, but also like being professional and having to speak and host an event and show up.
So do you think having that sensitivity is a burden or a gift?
A gift, 100%. I mean, I'll take it any day. I feel everything, and that's a lot of why I used alcohol to like numb a lot of those feelings. But it's also what empowers me to be able to lead a movement because I mean, I can connect with almost anyone at any time because I can see your humanity pretty quickly. Um, it can be exhausting though.
What do you think is the through line between leading a community of 500 people? I mean, you got a large amount of volume in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Do you think those people were coming there hungry for connection, for community, for non-alcoholic participation? Like, what was the central through line? Like, if you were to, at the end of the day, when you sort of poll the members, poll the community, were they all there primarily for the alcohol free, or were they looking for a larger community? Like, what's sort of the through line there?
Yeah, they were looking for events that didn't center alcohol. So they were looking for friends and spaces that were elevated, again, not recovery based. Actually, most of the people that come are not in recovery, and we're not a recovery group. I say that I'm in recovery, but I say that all the time. And so they were just looking because they were looking to meet other cool people to do cool shit with that doesn't center alcohol. We talked about it, but it's like everything has alcohol. It's getting better, but I mean, even run club, yoga, for God's sakes, like it's just there is just nowhere there was and nowhere to go where alcohol was not present, right? So people, even 3 years ago, the NA industry is booming, but people didn't even know we didn't have 3 years ago what we have today. So it wasn't the drinks. It was just like-minded people who put their health and health first and wanted to be present.
I'm sort of curious about this because I'm a builder like you, and I actually have several organizations that I run here in Charlotte as well. I run a men's community. I've got a mastermind going on. I have a founders dinner going on. And one of the things that I found in sort of building these vehicles for people is that people were just lonely, and couldn't find the types of connections that really fostered more engagement, fostered more curiosity. They're sort of like go to football games on the weekend, get shit-faced at a bar after the game, yada, 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 go to church on Sunday, wake up, rinse and repeat. And in conversations with a lot of these people that I'm now sort of building communities for, the through line for them is just sort of they wanted something more meaningful, a little bit deeper, more critically thought out rather than just going to a sporting event and then you get shit faced after. So my question to you about your group being, is it whether they're for the non-alcoholic or more for the community? It is an interesting conversation because in a lot of my events, people are still drinking, but they're also having really meaningful conversations and building relationships with people. And I'm just curious around sort of that dynamic of it. Are people more lonely for better conversation and better depth and better relationship, or is alcohol really sort of like the central impediment getting in the way of that for people? Thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that. So our tagline is deep connections without alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. Like I'm one of those people you'll meet like in 5 minutes, I'll probably have your life story, right? Because I like to go deep. I'm like that myself. And so yes, that is absolutely a through line of what I would hear. I don't know that anyone wants to say that they're lonely. That's why they're showing up. There's a stigma around lonely, but I think there shouldn't be. I mean, it's a human thing. And it's harder to connect now more than ever. But absolutely, people were looking and are looking for connection, myself included. It was just looking. It really did start. It's selfish. It's not selfish, but it's just like I was trying to meet a need, and I was not alone. Our first one, was at local coffee shop here, and that was it. We were just looking for good conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
To really kind of cut through the bullshit. And of course, yes, you can connect with alcohol. I'm aware of that. Like I know people drink and can still talk, but there's also a big subset of us who just didn't want it, right? So
yeah, I'm not arguing for or against it. I think everyone's going to do what they do, and I just try to focus on myself. But it is interesting how prevalent it is across the industry. I want to go back to what you said a second ago. There seems to be a stigma around being lonely, and I certainly understand that. I think lonely. If you tell someone you're lonely, like there's something wrong with you, that are you a nerd, or you're like what's wrong with you? And first of all, what's wrong with being a nerd? But this idea of being lonely, I think that a lot of people, and you look at the data on it, we're living in one of the loneliest periods that I can ever remember, when people studied this sort of stuff. Why are people so lonely? Let's talk about that first. Why do people feel so alone right now?
Yeah, I mean, how much time do you have? But I mean, it's so layered, right? But I think loneliness is on a spectrum, right? So I think, and we can move in and out of it too. I think we think like, oh, loneliness is a state that you're in forever. Like, I am an extrovert with a very big social life. I'm in a very loving, happy marriage, and I get lonely, right? So it doesn't, it's not a like, this is a forever thing. It's also not always, it's not about you. It's not like I think we attach our meaning and worth to it. Like we think, oh, I'm lonely, therefore I am a problem. Um, there's just so many different reasons. I think part of it is, again, digital consumption. I think we also live in a time, it's a recession. Like, I don't know about you, maybe you're doing well financially, but times are hard, right? So, like, we don't get to go out like we used to. I mean, food is $30, for like a cocktail or mocktail and a dinner, so it's just harder to get out, right? Because things are expensive. And then also where I live, we are very we have to be in cars, meaning we can't walk to things. We don't have walkability. Like, there's not an ease of getting to places, and third spaces are dying out, right? So third space being work and home. And then third space would be like a coffee shop, a bar. If those places are expensive and hard to get to, it makes it really hard.
I sort of I think about this a lot. I have two teenage daughters, and they're certainly, one of them is a non-social media user, the other one is a social media user,
Mm.
and they have a very different and distinct approach to how they live life. But this whole idea of loneliness, when you stop and really look at the last 50 years of how, at least here in America, how we have operated and aggregated the way we live our lives, we have sort of been put into silos. And I'm going to go a bit existential for a minute. So you may or may not agree with this, but I read a recent theory, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but I read a recent theory centered around the idea of taking women from the traditional household and giving them equality, and then putting them into the workforce to become CEOs and leaders of companies. While there was a positive benefit from doing that by giving equality and merit and sort of locus of control back to women, which it probably originated with you in the first place. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But it also did something else. It pulled you away from the house, where you were primarily the nurturer for the children, while the man, up until this point, was away working all the time, right? But when we pulled the woman out of the home, we also replaced our children's care with a non-family member and stuffed them into daycares and stuffed them into classrooms, and we didn't see them for 8 hours during the day. And in the process of doing that, they were suddenly not being raised by the central traditional household, which was a female and then a man coming home. And then there was sort of like this massive role reversal over the last 20, 30 years. And now suddenly you have children who are literally from about age 5, even maybe younger now, suddenly kicked out of the central house, put into school systems, sitting in classrooms, raised by somebody else, not the mom, not the dad. And then now you combine that with a completely non-conductive critical education. It's basically just rote memory. They are not allowed to talk during the day. They're not, by and large, allowed to go outside and have experiences. They're just sitting in a classroom where they're told to be quiet, memorize a bunch of bullshit, and then rinse and repeat until basically you're 23 years old. And now you throw in social media, you throw in digital, you throw in television, you throw in video games, you throw in alcohol, whatever it is, and it's like there's been a purposeful, conscious war against and the isolation of people in general, because now we don't live in big communities anymore. We send our children off to college in different cities. Like this whole idea of, and I'm going somewhere, I think you're nodding your head, so I feel like you're understanding what I'm saying. I might be rambling, but this whole idea of a centralized family raising children and working together and having a community, and the grandparents are nearby, and like everybody's sort of non-siloed, has been completely thrown out the door. And so people have been forced to sort of replace their loneliness by numbing agents. And that's social media, that has been television, that has been alcohol now. So I'm just sort of, I know you like to think deep. I'm just asking, do you think that all of this was accidental, or was this sort of just a byproduct of the nature of the game?
Yeah.
That was a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, I do. I love pulling these threads. I think it's complicated. Like we said, it's an onion. I think it's accidental. I don't tend to lean on like it's because if it was like on purpose, what would that be like big government or like who would be trying to pull us apart? I think it's a confluence.
How much time do you have?
Right, I know. That's why I said that too.
How much time do you have, Christina?
I know. That's what I'm saying. So like, I mean, I think Robert Putnam wrote a book called Bowling Alone, and I think it came out, like 30 years. I don't even know, long time. And he started with like, we don't go to church anymore, and the idea, or we don't bowl anymore like we used to, that kind of thing. And so part of it is those third spaces broke down. I'd have to see studies. I don't know that I could support saying like taking women out of the home was a net bad for society in general. I think that could be a weak argument. But I'm open to studies on that. But I do get what you're saying, and I do agree with you. We don't see the nuclear family, and I do know I don't have kids yet, but a lot of my people that do say that they don't have childcare, right? Because a lot of us don't live where we used to. Absolutely. And so we don't have that support. So that makes it much harder to be with your friends and be present because you're tired or just don't have childcare. So absolutely, I think it's a confluence of many different things compounding on top of each other. But I mean, they say that loneliness was, really bad in 2019 before COVID happened, and then COVID really exacerbated things, and we never bounced back. If anything, it got worse.
Why was loneliness so bad up until 2019? I've not seen any data on that.
Yeah, so a lot of different things, exactly like we're talking about. So I think a lot, people are not going to church as much that they used to, so people are leaving that structure. And look, it's interesting. I deconstructed from my faith a long time ago. I left the church, but I did grow up in a church, and that was my community. Understandably, right? For good or bad, but like it's where you had, Bible study, but then you'd have birthdays as well, like all the good things. And where you probably met your husband or your wife or your best friend. And so if you add all of that up, like you take away people going to church less, people going out less. And then on top of it, social skills, I've said this, have atrophied. There's the digital, it's like the digital convenience economy, right? So we Uber instead of asking a friend to take us to the airport. We use Uber Eats and DoorDash, and I'm not here to say those are bad. I use all of them. But those, I call them micro tears in the social connection framework. We're lonelier because we don't have to ask. We don't have to rely on each other like we used to. The village really, as we say, isn't really present anymore.
The center of all that is technology in some way, shape, or form.
I would agree. I think so. I do.
So, yeah, again, I'm not arguing against technology. I use it all day long. I have built my entire business. This podcast wouldn't exist without technology.
Right.
But the overconsumption of it, perhaps, just like the overconsumption of alcohol leads to chaos and anarchy in your own internal system, like the overconsumption of technology and the over-reliance of technology in general, like it's a very slippery slope. So it's interesting to me. If you were to remove technology from the environments that we operate in, we wouldn't be able to do this podcast. We wouldn't be able to like. There's so many variables that we're now totally reliant upon. And you can't just go to a technology sobriety concept, right? It just wouldn't work at this point. But I am curious, what did sobriety for you, sort of in terms of you stopping to drink alcohol? You started to build this community, but what did it change about connecting with people? I'm just sort of curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to circle. I don't want to forget what you said because I agree with you. We have to live with the technology, so everything's going to have to be intentional. But she'll take from there.
Balance, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's more intentional. I don't stay places longer than I don't want to because when you're numbing, you're not aware, you're not checked in with your body. You don't know, you push yourself to stay in places you don't want or hang out with people you don't like. So I'm very intentional. I know when I want to leave or when I'm tired or when I'm hungry, right? Or when a conversation feels off because I'm present because I have to be.
I did. I don't think you know this about me, but for almost 15 years, I owned a photography studio here in Charlotte, and I used to shoot a lot of weddings. And there were a couple of occasions where it was a dry wedding, and I have to say, It was the most boring, dull wedding of all weddings I'd ever done. Nobody was dancing, nobody was having fun, and the night ended really early. So my question is like, is there a time and a place for alcohol for any reason whatsoever?
No, let me be clear. I'm not anti-alcohol. I know people can drink it. You just haven't been to a fun party. I throw raves, like huge raves where we don't drink. Like I mean DJs, dancing. You're just around the wrong people. And that is one of my own narratives that
I was just working it. Don't hate the player.
no, it's okay. I know, absolutely. No, and I'm like trying to take back that. That has been a whole part of my work too, is sober does not equal boring, right?
Mm.
I get it. Some people will always need alcohol. That's fine. I'm not here. That's not my audience. I am here for the person that wants to dance sober, that wants to go to their first wedding, or exactly all the things. No, and that's where I really come and say you are enough as you are. And I will say I socialize. I've been doing it for 6 years and hosting events. It is awkward sometimes. I will acknowledge that. I acknowledge all the time. I say this all the time. An awkward moment never killed anyone that I know of. You know what I mean? Like, okay, humaning is awkward. Meeting people sucks sometimes. The conversation fucking lags. Okay, or did anyone die? And so we have to learn to get back to each other. And I think a lot of people miss that, or they think they have to be perfect in the way they show up. And I'm like, it's okay.
Have you always been, if you look back throughout your childhood, have you always been somebody who wanted people to feel included? Were you always sort of one of those builders that was always building rooms, building spaces for people to hang out and feel included? That's always sort of like been a through line for you?
Yes, 100%.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. At my core, I love people. I know that might be weird to say. I do. I'm going to piss me off sometimes, but I love people. I'm a gatherer at my heart. I told my husband if he took me to the woods, I'd be gathering squirrels. It's just like it's who I am. I am a builder and a gatherer. So, and I think I felt left out. Like who hasn't, right? But at school, I was never really smart and never really good at anything traditional. And so I hate that feeling, and I don't want anyone to ever feel like that.
So there were times in your childhood and even as an adult where you didn't feel seen or you didn't feel part of something?
Absolutely. All the time.
How much do you think, if you've ever analyzed this, and I'm sure you have, you seem like you're pretty introspective, how much of that piece has played into what you're building?
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, I appreciate you asking, but like, does anyone ever fix a problem altruistically completely? I don't even know if we can ever all be altruistic, right? Like, I'm trying to serve something here, 100%. And a lot of my work and fascination with being seen is probably 100 is because I don't feel seen all the time, right? And I don't know how. I'm working on how to show up. Like I read a Substack called In Process because I am in process. Like I have some of it figured out, but not all of it. And I don't completely know how to let myself be seen all the time. I think what I struggle with is perfectionism. I'm a very kind person, very bubbly. So I have a very hard time letting people in to help me when I'm struggling. And it's something I'm still working on.
So it's the vulnerability aspects of that?
Yes.
In terms of, can we go down this for a little bit, this vulnerability piece?
Of course.
So, I think we've talked a little bit, and I won't go down my rabbit hole again, but we've talked a little bit about sort of like the vessel that has brought us where we are today in terms of living in silos and technology and social media and all these things. But I think one of the byproducts that I have seen, and this is where I'm going back to the childhood, who's raising our children, is the vulnerability aspect, because they're not with family. And I'm just suggesting, is there a connection and a correlation between children and early childhood development? And I'm not a child psychologist, but I have done some reading on this, between vulnerability and transparency and connection and emotional bandwidth and all those things when you're no longer being raised by your central parents. And as a byproduct of that, you sort of learn to become more reclusive around things and only share certain things with certain people because you just don't trust the process anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly could be. I think I agree with you. I'd have to see a psychologist or a study on it. I don't know that women going to the workforce has had that much of an impact on it. I'm going to say no. I think I'm not meant to stay home. I know so many women that I would be miserable at home. I'm meant to be out and building. And I think there are studies to back saying that I don't think it impacts the children negatively when a woman's outside the home.
No, I'm not suggesting that it does or doesn't. That was just a piece of how I was opening with it. I don't know. But then who's raising the kids if neither the mom or the dad are at the house?
Sure. I mean, you can. Both people can work and you can have childcare. I mean, I don't think it's mutually exclusive. And also, why is this just falling on a woman? Where's the man in all this?
It's not. That's why I'm suggesting. So it has nothing to do with a woman. It has to do with just the model being completely changed and nothing was adjusted to support that transformation is all I'm suggesting.
Sure. And that could be, and you're right. And I think a lot of this, we have to go back to the economy. Like when things are hard and scarce and money is tight for most people, right? The average American, I think things like social health and relationships fall by the wayside, which is understandable. And I see this, I can speak to that. I do see this in my work. People are like, I'm tired, man. Like, like I can't make, because people, the amount of ghosting and not showing up, that's a whole nother thing that's really prevalent. We don't do what we say we will. And I hear from people all the time, like, I don't have money, bandwidth, childcare, right? So when we're in a state of economics like we are, where people are struggling to just put food on the table or pay the rent, you're not really as concerned about, texting your friend back or showing up for a birthday party.
The way you just described that, the flakiness of people, it sounds like you have some experience with that.
I do. I mean, personally and professionally. Absolutely.
It is kind of probably, if I were to say there's a single biggest red flag when I meet people, is centered around the idea that if you don't follow through in what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my bigger red flags for people.
100%. I agree.
So you're saying there's been an increase in that and you're trying to create some.
Yes.
Why do you think?
Well, again, digital, right? So when you host an event online, or when I can text someone and say, hey, I'm so sorry, I don't feel good, I can't make it, you think it's no big deal. Whereas back in the day, when we were in the same church, let's just take that for example, or we had smaller towns, I'd run into you, right? And I'd be like, hey, motherfucker, where were you? Right? Like it's very awkward. Like you have to be accountable. Whereas a text or an email or a DM on Instagram, it's like you don't think it's a big deal because you don't have to deal with the person. The other portion would be even just I'm old. I'm almost 40. I use landlines. Like you weren't texting your friends to cancel. You had to call and talk to their mom. You know what I mean? Like it was like awkward. And so I think it's all layered, but we haven't talked about this yet, or no one. We're talking about it a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. You got very gangster on that just now.
Absolutely. I believe it. I mean, because I believe it. Because people say they want community, they say they want the village, and yet we're not willing to do what it takes or be inconvenienced, right? To be
responsible and mature about it.
Yes. And show up for our people. And obviously no one's perfect, but like on the whole, we don't show up like we used to.
At the end of the day, what does Free Life actually do for the people who are part of it?
Yeah. So we connect people to other like-minded people who are on a journey to live an alcohol-free life, whatever that looks like, whether it's recovery, health-based, or they're just sober curious. And we do life together. So, I mean, that's it.
Is this a membership model?
No, my events are free.
So where are you making revenue? From the bar? The non-alcohol? That's where you're...
I wholesale and direct to consumer.
Why don't you charge a membership fee for people to attend events?
Because I believe community should be free, and I'm making enough money doing it otherwise. And everything's a fucking subscription nowadays. I'm sick of it. I'm just being real.
I have a different take on that. Can I offer a different take on that?
Sure. Yeah.
So I play a lot of men's soccer, and when I first moved to Charlotte, I started up a men's soccer club here. And there's a lot of common threads between you and I. Remember, I'm a builder. So, and what I noticed for the first 3 or 4 years is I sponsored the team, and there's some pretty hefty fees, referee fees and league fees and uniform fees, and all these different things. And by the time it's all said and done, it probably would cost an average person around $500 to $600 per season to play in this league. That includes all the expenses, right? And it's not a lot of money, but for, when we're 24, 25 years old, sometimes $500 is a lot of money. So I would sponsor the whole thing. But one of the things I noticed is that I would get sparse attendance from people,
yeah.
or people wouldn't show up on time, or like I remember looking up and like the game was already 30 minutes in and there's like a couple of dudes that are just walking over to the field, and I'd be like, what the hell, man? Like The game started at 9, not 9:28. Like anyway. So I was having a similar conversation with somebody once, and they're like, bro, stop sponsoring them and start charging them and see if that changes. And it literally overnight, and I just did like a 50%. I paid for 50%, they paid for 50%. And literally overnight, because they were vested in it, they had committed to it financially, and I was doing, everything else behind the scenes for them, but they were now sort of part of something. So there is something to be said for a membership model, if I may just sort of suggest that.
No, and Absolutely. And I do charge for a lot of my events, but some of them I do keep for free. And I have found that, and I agree with you. I do, because people will show up when they pay for something.
So your need to feel seen, you've built a community, you've become sober, you've created something out of nothing from a belief, from a cause, from a catalyst that you experienced yourself. Where does that whole idea of helping other people feel seen show up within the community itself, and now these events that you're showing? Like, how are you fulfilling people's emotional bandwidth around what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's all very intentional. That's where my staying in the room, which you mentioned at the top workshop, comes from. But I teach people how to, it's honestly communication skills and social skills. But we're very much so big on introduce yourself, walk up to someone you don't know. So it's leadership on my end, good leadership, right? So introduce yourself, ask questions. We live in a society where, I mean, I can't tell you how many people tell me all the time, I've never told anyone that. Anyway, ask questions and listen and really give a shit. And when someone says something, respond to what they said. Don't just wait to give your response. So it's really teaching people, like, we need to ask better questions and learn better listening, active listening skills.
The active listening, you've touched on this a few times, so I feel like there's a core or a thread to sort of this. Why do you think people are unable to be such good listeners? What is it that my grandfather, I think I said this to you before, my grandfather used to like grab me by the ears and say, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah.
Deevo, you listen more. And I just remember thinking, wow, that's really powerful. I never really thought about that. And it is kind of funny because I notice in conversations myself, even as you're talking to me right now, I'm sort of thinking, I'm writing down a note that you said, and I want to like ask a quick question about it, but I have to remind myself, wait, stop, she's still talking about something here. There might be something I need to listen to. So I'm always sort of in that space of reminding even myself, like, and I feel like I'm a pretty good listener, but I'm always even reminding myself, like, you need to pay attention. There might be something else you might have missed. So why are people always so quick to jump the gun in the listening and go straight to the talking?
Yeah, so good. Well, because one, we love to talk about ourselves. This is why I can be anyone's. Honestly, if I was a nefarious person, I could be. I could manipulate people, because if you get someone to talk about themselves for 30 seconds, you build trust and connection very quickly. So we like to talk about ourselves, right? Who doesn't? And then when you have someone that's engaged and listening and acting like they give a shit, there you go. So I think that's part of it. Obviously, we're just human and we like to talk about ourselves. The other one is we're distracted. I know we keep bringing up, social media, but I think there's got to be a study somewhere on the impact that technology and social media has had on our social skills, because we know attention spans are lower than they've ever been. So my guess is that would correlate to conversations that are a little bit longer and maybe boring, right? So I get this a lot with I'm neurodivergent. Neurodivergent people will often tell me, I don't want to make small talk because it's boring. I don't want to talk about what someone else is. I'm like, do you think I give a shit about someone's baseball or their grandma, their mom? I do, but not on the whole. But guess what? I care about you. I want you to be seen. I want you to feel. So you're going to talk about something that maybe I don't care about for 30 seconds. But guess what? That's the exchange and the sacrifice that it takes to have a conversation. Does that make sense? No, it's okay. I'm married. My husband talks about shit all the time I don't want to talk about, and vice versa. But we're in a relationship, and I care about him.
So being able to be conscious listeners, not just conscious talkers. There's a lot of different pieces. You asked earlier, and you'd like to see the data on what social media does to our brains and what it's done. There is a lot of studies around what it's done to our ability to communicate and critically think and sort of juxtapose ourselves, and imagination and creativity. And there's one study that's really prevalent right now, and I forget the name of the study, but they've connected people's brains to these synapses that are sort of reading activity and neurons firing, all these different things when people are on social media, when they're using ChatGPT, for example, and then of course not using it. And it's not a hypothetical scenario anymore. It's like there are literally the gray matter of the brain. There's no lighting up anywhere where socializing occurs, where critical thinking occurs, where imagination occurs. I think it's called the amygdala or the hippocampus. Forgive me, I'm not a neurologist, but I believe those are the two that are studied. And they're critically they're the cause agents that sort of cause creativity, conversation, imaginational, and they're literally just like sitting in a flat line when people are on social media. So yeah, so there are plenty of studies that are out there that are actually that show what's going on, and it's not a pretty picture. And I've been saying this for a while to my daughters. If somebody doesn't get something in place soon, I think we're going to pass a point of no return. And I don't know what that looks like, but I do believe we're probably already at that cusp of that.
Yeah, not if I had something to say about it. If I have breath in my lungs, I will be gathering people until I die. People have been telling me to do online. Anyway, I don't do anything online. We're IRL. You're going to say hi to someone you don't know. You're going to talk. It may be boring or awkward, but we'll be all right.
Yeah. All right. So if people want to connect with you, what's the best place to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Free Life LLC on all platforms or freelifellc.com.
And you're primarily confined to Virginia, or are you moving this to different markets? Is there a franchise concept at play? Like, where are we going with this?
I would love to, but right now I want to dominate locally and then find some funding.
What I heard about in this conversation from Christina is that Free Life, it is an alcohol-free brand. And it's also a connection brand, and it's also a community brand, and not drinking is just sort of one of the pieces that they have latched on to in order to sort of build a community around. So at the end of the day, I don't think alcohol is going away, right? It's very deep seated in the DNA of humans, and I've traveled all over the world, and while people certainly drink less in certain parts of the world than they do here in America, I don't know the data on that. It is basically anywhere and everywhere you go in every country I've been. It's sort of like the conversation centerpiece. So it'd be interesting to see that Christina's concept has gravity enough to sort of latch on in different markets, to sort of have perpetuity around it. I do know that drinking is going down in a certain segment of population here, but it'd be interesting for me to see, like what the longevity is to this. So anyhow, let me wrap up the show and some takeaways. People, listen before you talk. It's really important. Alcohol is not just alcohol. Sobriety is not the absence of fun. It is the presence of being honest and being vulnerable. And from Christina's perspective, and I can certainly confirm this, there are many years I went where I actually was completely alcohol free, and I still live a pretty full life. And you don't have to have alcohol. I'm not saying you shouldn't drink it, but I'm not saying you have to have it either. So anyhow, for those of you listening to the podcast today, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I know you have choices when it comes to podcasts. Thank you for listening in to the Brand Lab today. All right, that's it for today, folks. Thank you. If this episode hit you, like it, subscribe it, leave a review. It helps a lot more than you think, and it helps the right people find this show and help us keep growing so we can continue to produce amazing episodes. You can find me at thebrandstoryteller.com if you're interested in connecting with me, and everything else about this episode, the guest, the websites, the social media handles, they are all linked below. I'll see you in the next show.